2023, it will be 8 years since Barry has passed away. Should we have a moment of silence? So the Jordan syndrome is so rare that Barry actually is only the 106th person to be diagnosed with. How does it feel that Barry was rare and unique where you blend in with everybody with your crop tops and Uggs and Starbucks? Barry is looking down at me and giving me a high five. So,
I don't know about that. He's got to wait and see how this whole thing plays out, and then he'll decide.
uh, he'll like me. Like, who doesn't like me? I think there's something wrong with them and they don't like me. Sheesh.
Yeah, so his baseline honestly was happy. He was like literally the happiest kid. Like honestly, my family wondered if he like didn't fully feel pain because he like never cried, very rarely complained, usually only when we were bothering him. And I'm going to tell you something that I rarely tell my families, but Barry was definitely a very severe case of Jordan syndrome. There's like pretty big wide range of severity. And I think his story really is going to give us a lot of evidence and help to make sure that that doesn't happen to other kids. So the families I worked with, like, they like, I'm not trying to like hype myself up or anything, but they really like loved me and regularly told me like about how much like I helped them and everything like that. And everybody kind of knew it like at my job. Like I went like so far and above and beyond for all my families because I knew the impact. You know what I mean? Like I knew the difference between someone rushing in and out of the room when my brother was inpatient versus someone coming and sitting down with my family, like helping to calm us down, helping to really explain.
Well, I don't know, like, anyone ever told you, Lexi, but, like, maybe you're just a good person, you know? IDK, but.
I don't know, maybe.
So let's dive into maturity. Anyone that has a severe disease or disability has to grow up faster than the rest of the population due to just needing a grasp on reality and seriousness of the situation, even the family around them. Were you aware that you were more mature than the rest of your classmates?
1000%. Like I just have this like one memory like from high school ingrained in my brain. Like I'll never forget it. And I wonder if the girl responsible for this will watch this. Probably not, but because she doesn't care. But I remember like my brother had just been moved to a pediatric nursing home, and that was honestly like the hardest thing for me of like the whole experience with Barry because I just felt like it was like everybody giving up on him, and he was usually wearing a sweater vest and a button-down shirt underneath it and just looked like A1, very cool and fly. He's probably like cracking up there because I'm like such a geek, but it dawned on me like in a way I felt like he was being like, obviously this is not why he died, but like in part like he was kind of like, okay, like it's time for you to like go and spread your wings because like.
So I know you are a sibling support coordinator for Jordan's Guardian Angel Charity. What advice do you have for other siblings that are in a similar situation as you were? Hello, welcome to my podcast, to my one Joe Suits. I am Joe Suits. I'll be giving a mic to Lexi. Lexi is actually normal, kind of. Well, I mean, we'll see by the end of this episode. We will be talking about her brother Barry. He had a syndrome called Jordan syndrome, not named after Michael Jordan, where he can dunk and win a bunch of championships. It's a little different where his symptoms include having an intellectual disability, low muscle tone, delayed development of skill, delayed development of speech, and a larger than normal head with distinct facial features. On March 3rd, 2023, it will be 8 years since Barry has passed away. Should we have a moment of silence? Ready?
Ready.
Okay. So, what was your favorite moment with Barry that you wish you could relive again?
Ooh, my favorite one would probably be his Make-A-Wish, honestly, because, well, I mean, a Make-A-Wish is obviously a great day for anyone who gets one, but I think I love that day so much because everything was just so normalized. Like, the attention was all on him for, like, a good reason, and not just, like, him having a crisis or something like that. And he just had the best day ever, and he was all smiles, and it was actually only a couple months before he passed, so the pictures and videos from the day are like something I cherish more than anything.
Wait, what did he wish for?
So he was the biggest country music fan ever. My whole family, we didn't like country music, and his teachers kept telling us that he loved country music, and we didn't believe her. So she sent him home with a mixtape, and we played it, and he like lost his little mind. So we
Okay.
knew from the time that he got a Make-A-Wish, we wanted to have a country singer sing to him, and we had Lee Bryce come and sing to him, and it was amazing.
What was his name?
Lee Bryce.
I think let me just look him up for a second.
His like biggest song is Drinking Class.
Let's see if I know anything else. I like I Don't Dance, which is really sad, and Memory I Don't Mess With is also a really sad song. So,
Yeah.
okay. That's
He
awesome.
has some happy ones too, don't worry.
I would have never guessed he would have Leech Bryce band.
Oh yeah, so my whole family got into country honestly because of Barry, so we're all big country fans now.
Okay. We're not expecting to go in this direction at all, but okay. So the Jordan syndrome is so rare that Barry actually is only the 106th person to be diagnosed with. How does it feel that Barry was rare and unique where you blend in with everybody with your crop tops and Uggs and Starbucks?
Well, all right, well, there's a lot right there. So, yes, he was the 106th person to be diagnosed with it. We're now up to about 244 since then. That was back
Wow.
in August.
Okay.
Yeah, that was back in August of 2019. So it's great, whole exome sequencing is getting a little bit more accessible, at least in the States. So that's why we're seeing more diagnoses. But I don't know if I would consider myself completely normal just because growing up with Barry was definitely a very different experience and I definitely didn't really feel normal a lot of the time. So thank you for telling me I'm normal and that I blend in because I don't always feel like that.
Hey, you came up with a unpopular opinion that you don't like fall, so I don't know. And you're like,
I have a lot of unpopular opinions. That's just one of them, yeah.
oh man, people are gonna hate you by the end of this episode.
Probably. It's fine.
Well, I didn't know Barry is looking down at me and giving me a high five, so
I don't know about that. He's got to wait and see how this whole thing plays out and then he'll decide.
uh, he'll like me. Like, who doesn't like me? I think there's something wrong with them and they don't like me. Sheesh.
That's true. If he didn't like you, then there's a problem because he really liked everybody. So,
Well, okay. So they say a person dies twice, once when they die and again when nobody remembers their name. You are keeping his spirit alive by using his death as to why laws should be changed. Let's talk about how the STEP program has failed Barry. I have here it caused him to have tons of seizures, ammonia levels to rise, putting him in a coma, and then tragically passing away. Before we begin, let's establish the STEP program. Would you like to explain it, or should I?
yeah, I can. So, very like layman's explanation is basically like insurance has these like stepwise procedures. So, you have to try certain treatments and then fail on them before you can go to the next one. And for a lot of reasons, it mostly comes down to money. So they try to get like the least expensive treatments first and hope that they work so they don't have to pay for the more expensive ones. With Barry, it was a little different because he actually didn't receive his diagnosis until after he passed. So
Oh,
honestly, I think part of it, in addition to step therapy, was doctors truly were just throwing the book at him. Like they had no idea how to treat him. So they were just going to try anything. So they got to the point where his seizures were refractory. He was still having many of them on multiple anti-epileptics. And so, he had had this like cycle of like a few grand mal seizures right in a row, and we really couldn't get them under control. So they decided to start treatment with valproic acid. And he was on that for a few weeks and while he was inpatient. And then one day he just completely lost his mental status and he was in a coma for about 2 weeks. And so he didn't pass away like right after that, but that basically started this huge baseline decline. So like after that, he couldn't sit up unassisted anymore. He really couldn't like complete the few commands that he could before. Like at this point, he could still do things like if you told him to look at something, he would look at it, and he wouldn't do that anymore. Those kinds of things. So I kind of think of that as his like initial decline, and then just from there, it was basically like a downhill slope. And so he just kept getting worse and worse after that. The seizures got way worse even after we stopped the medication, and any little change to his body would just completely throw him out of whack.
let's talk about like the what would Barry like before when he was healthy? Like, was he not able to communicate by English language and more of sounds and praises, or like what was his baseline?
Yeah, so his baseline honestly was happy. He was like literally the happiest kid. Like honestly, my family wondered if he like didn't fully feel pain because he like never cried, very rarely complained, usually only when we were bothering him. And yeah, he just like was very affectionate. He would reach out, want to hold your hand, want to rub your arm, those kinds of things, want to hug you basically into a chokehold. And yeah, he didn't talk with words, but he used his voice a ton. So even if he was just watching TV, he'd be like vocalizing happily all the time. He was a big laugher. He would like laugh until he lost his breath, and my mom would usually yell at me so he could catch his breath. Yeah, just a really happy kid. At his strongest, I guess, point, he could pull himself up to stand for a little bit, like without, additional supports with AFOs, but other than that, nothing. And then after that was kind of like a downward decline.
Yeah, so you mentioned before that he would diagnose after he died. Like, I didn't know that was a thing. Like, it, how did you like connect the dots? I guess that he was diagnosed with Jordan syndrome.
Yeah, so we had done whole exome sequencing as well as a ton of other genetic testing before he passed. And also my mom and me and my sisters, we all did whole exome sequencing too to compare, and it revealed nothing of significance. And that was like probably in 2012. And then he passed away in 2015. And then in 2018, I actually started working with his former neurologist, like unrelated to Jordan syndrome and him. I was coordinating clinical trials in spinal muscular atrophy. And this one day, I got a new patient who had like cognitive differences in addition to his SMA. And so we were going back to the OR, and he started fussing, and I just instinctually just started like singing to him, and he reached out and held my hand, and it just reminded me so much of Barry. So after that, I started talking to my boss, and I was like, like he really reminds me of Barry. And so my boss was like, yeah, it's such a mystery. We never got the answer. And so he gave me a few suggestions as to how I could basically like reopen Barry's case. And so I did everything he suggested. The first was going back to the clinical team and having them reanalyze the whole exome sequencing because it had been a few years. There hopefully had been new genes. And then also he recommended that I register with the Manton Center for Orphan Diseases at Boston Children's Hospital because the clinical team and the research center, they analyze the whole exome differently, so they might find different things. So that was all in May of 2019. And then in August of 2019, I come into work one day and I have a missed call from his former genetic counselor who I had been working with too. And I call her back, and the first thing she says was, "We found it." And I said, "You found what?" Thinking I lost like something in the hospital, like, because I just
Yeah.
did not ever expect them to find it. And she said that they found that Barry was the 106th person to be diagnosed with the mutation in the PPP2R5D gene. She gave me his mutation, and she was like, "This is so rare that there's technically not an official name yet. The family community has named it Jordan syndrome because the first patient diagnosed was named Jordan. And I'm going to tell you something that I rarely tell my families, but I actually want you to go on Facebook because this family group on Facebook is pretty much the only resource that exists for this." So I did, and then I also like looked them up on, Google and found a phone number, which I called and left this like ranting message about how my brother had passed away years ago, but I just found out he had this diagnosis and I wanted to know more and blah, blah, blah. I probably sounded crazy. And I later found out that phone number is connected to Jordan's dad's law firm. So I really wonder who heard that voicemail. But yeah, that's how we found out.
If people are just listening as just regular people, it's pretty common for people to not be diagnosed properly with rare diseases. They kind of just don't know. They're just sometimes just throwing stuff at a wall and see what sticks or not. So
Yeah.
with Barry passing away, would him being diagnosed earlier have helped him in any way of being, I guess, properly medicated, I guess, if that's the right phrase to say?
As of today, like in 2022, 2023, no, it wouldn't have helped him because we don't have a treatment yet for Jordan syndrome or a cure. But we are getting very close. We actually just started some drug trials in mice. So I hope that by learning about what happened with Barry, so I think, let me take a step back. So Barry was definitely a very severe case of Jordan syndrome. There's like pretty big wide range of severity. And I think his story really is going to give us a lot of evidence and help to make sure that that doesn't happen to other kids. So there's like this preliminary research that shows that this disease can cause early onset Parkinson's. And when I reviewed Barry's case with the researchers in Jordan syndrome, they agreed that he really did have some hallmark symptoms of like a neurodegenerative path. They can't really say if it was Parkinson's or not at this point, but I think that I say that because although knowing his diagnosis wouldn't have helped him when he was alive because there was no drug yet available, I think that even just the aside from the peace of mind it gives me to know his diagnosis and that I don't have the gene, like I can't give it to my future children, even aside from that, I think it gives me so much peace of mind, so much hope, everything, that now that we have this answer, we can use it to ensure that this does not happen to anybody else.
So I'm like kind of confused though, because it seems like Barry was born in a, I guess, a fixed position of like mentality and physicality. So what will the treatment do then? Like, will it just halt to, like, did Barry like get word that he aged, or so? Like, what
Yeah,
would the
he did.
treatment do?
So he did get a lot worse as he aged. So the thought would be that if we treat him earlier, he wouldn't have gotten worse. And so when he was born, we actually thought he was a normal baby. Like we didn't know that there were like really bad problems until he was about 6 weeks old. And in that time, and honestly beyond the 6 weeks, he was having seizures that we didn't know because we had never, like my mom had never seen seizures like that before. Seizures are a lot more subtle in infants. So my mom honestly thought he was like a jumpy baby and didn't realize it was seizures. And that kind of like having seizures like that, so uncontrolled for a long time, just kills your brain tissue. So he really just lost a lot of, it's hard to imagine like what his function could have been if he hadn't had that period of time where he was having these untreated seizures without us knowing.
Yeah, I'd be interviewing him and not you.
Probably.
Yeah, it's just weird. Like you mentioned Parkinson's, there could be so many other things. That's what's weird about like the rare disease community. That so much is linked together. To like they found out like transgenderism is like linked to autism. And I'm like, what? And it's still like weird how everything's like connected in a way, and we're like connected in a way, like genetically, but like spiritually, which is kind of weird. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's good though, because especially in like the rare disease space, like where a lot of people, especially people who are not affected by rare disease, will say like, or maybe, I don't know if they say this out loud, but I think they're thinking it in their heads, like, since it affects like a small amount of people, they might not want to prioritize putting money towards that research or anything like that. But if you can tack on that it's related to Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, cancer, then people start to get a little bit more interested because those things literally affect everyone. So I kind of like that it's all linked because then it's like it like hits home for more people. I'm not saying that's right. I don't think it should be that way. I think they should care regardless, but people.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just having a deja vu right now. I feel like I interviewed already, but like I don't know. I'm having a deja vu moment right now. Um, uh, Sorry, I'm just throwing off right now. Yeah, it is interesting, but like, yeah, I mean, it's interesting, but like to me, I like in the rare disease space, I kind of don't care about other diseases in a way. Like I don't like they always say like, oh, we're a big community and such. Like, I feel like I'm not even part of it in a way because like we're just all kind of scratching our way to the top a little bit. That's not the right phrase to say, but I don't know. I don't feel as close to the community as like others would say. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, I kind of go back and forth. Like when I'm doing something that's very rare disease related, I feel like very in it. I feel a part of it and stuff like that. But I was actually like just thinking about this earlier. Like in my day to day life, I do feel disconnected from it, like the rare disease space, even though it's on my mind. Like obviously yours too, like 100% of the time. Like everything I do comes back to Barry, and like he's like all over my apartment. Like I'm just always thinking about it, but
But
it's weird that disconnect, like I do
I mean,
feel,
you're
yeah.
also a normal person, so like you're not. You don't really have. You have like a personal story of it, but it's not about. It's not of you. It's about someone else. I can understand from your why you don't feel as connected as someone that's actually had the disease.
Yeah. Sometimes I kind of feel like a little, like, not weird, but I just feel like it's like some type of guilt almost, like when I'm in a rare disease space. Like, I feel like sometimes I should like keep my mouth shut, especially if there are a lot of people who actually have like rare diseases themselves, because I feel like they're obviously the experts, and I don't want them to think like I'm trying to take like the spotlight or anything like that. But the way
Huh.
I kind of just like remind myself is like Barry couldn't be doing this even if he was still alive right now. So
Hmm.
someone has to do it for him, and I have nominated myself.
No, I mean, they're welcoming and like your opinion is validated. Like we're gonna talk about your sibling relationship in a little bit, but I think your opinion is validated, and also that you're studying to become a doctor and such. You're like directly, indirectly into this, and like you can kind of you're like the you can kind of be like the middle person from the rare disease community and like the medical community because not everyone has the,
Yeah.
and everyone can talk about it, but not everyone has the experience. So what it's like to live with someone that has a rare disease in that capacity.
Exactly. Like that's exactly how I think of myself. And like I think in my last role, like when I was working at Children's Hospital, like I really felt that because like the families I worked with, like they like I'm not trying to like hype myself up or anything, but they really like loved me and regularly told me like about how much like I helped them and everything like that. And everybody kind of knew it like at my job. Like I went like so far and above and beyond for all my families because I knew the impact. You know what I mean? Like I knew the difference between someone rushing in and out of the room when my brother was inpatient versus someone coming and sitting down with my family, like helping to calm us down, helping to really explain everything so we fully understand it, not just, so the doctor can check that box that says you explained it kind of thing.
Well, I don't know like anyone ever told you, Lexi, but like maybe you're just a good person, you know? IDK, but
I don't know, maybe.
I think you're just being a good person and you want to translate that into the doctor's field and everything else that you put your hand on.
Well, thank you.
So let's dive into maturity. Anyone that has a severe disease or disability has to grow up faster than the rest of the population due to just needing a grasp on reality and seriousness of the situation, even the family around them. Were you aware that you were more mature than the rest of your classmates?
1000%. I frequently had a very difficult time, like having friends, making friends, keeping friends, because like I had like real problems in my household every day, and a lot of kids like didn't really understand that. And so it was very difficult for me to like talk about issues. Like my friends growing up were like, they loved Barry and like they loved to hear about when he was doing well. But if anything got negative, like things got weird. So I kind of quickly like realized I just like shouldn't really talk about the problems like with my friends and stuff. And then like I kind of noticed like with adults, it's almost like they wanted to talk about the problems more. Like I don't know if they were like nosy or something, maybe they just cared more, but like they were much more willing to talk about like everything. And so ever since I was like little, like I'm talking about like 5 years old, like I just felt like much more connection to like adults. And I've always like been friends with like older people and stuff like that. I don't know.
Are you the one that would like talk to their English teacher?
I was always very good friends with all of my teachers.
There you go. I knew it. I feel you. I think it comes with the territory, and it kind of sucks to be in that position of like I still kind of in the same place now. I'm almost 30 now, and I still kind of want to be friends with other people. I don't know. I think it's just a maturity thing. It's just like I don't know. It's like a firm grasp of reality, but you also can't blame the other kids for not
Right.
understanding. That's totally like they're probably worrying about like I don't know what was popular in like the early 2000s. Like I don't know.
I don't even know either because I didn't care about it, and that's exactly the problem. So, like, yeah, they just like create that disconnect. But even as
Like
I got older, like, it was still weird. Like, I just have this like one memory like from high school ingrained in my brain. Like, I'll never forget it. And I wonder if the girl responsible for this will watch this. Probably not, but because she doesn't care. But I remember like my brother had just been moved to a pediatric nursing home, and that was honestly like the hardest thing for me of like the whole experience with Barry, because I just felt like it was like everybody giving up on him. And I remember this one day I came into school and I like must have looked upset or something, and so this girl, she asked me like what was going on, and then she randomly just was like, oh, like how's Barry, like I haven't like heard about him in a while. And I just like immediately started crying, and right away she was like, oh, no, 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 never mind, never mind, never mind. And I just felt like such a piece of shit, like that. It made me feel so bad about myself, and like I'm like, okay, well, I'm never gonna do that again. So yeah, I don't know.
No, I get it. Wait, but let's. So, do you think that Barry would into a caring facilities, so that meaning that your family couldn't take care of him, or he needed much more help that you were able to give him, or like immediate access to like, why did that situation go down?
Yeah, so at this point, he was basically having like one grand mal seizure after another. Like he would have a grand mal seizure, we'd take him to the hospital, he'd get stable, he'd come home and immediately have another rinse and repeat kind of thing. And so we knew that that kind of stress was like literally killing him. And so the doctor said that we needed to try to like kind of like reduce his pace of life and like try to keep the stress like low on his body. So they all felt, all the doctors and even my mom and my sisters, they felt like it was the right move to move him to this pediatric nursing home that we were already connected to. Like he had had a few respites there and stuff like that. But I think that almost like hurt the case for me because I like knew it a little bit, and it was not my standard of care, which was absolute excellence. And like, so my mom and my sisters are a lot like what you're getting from me right now. So like, anytime Barry left the house, he was pristine. Like his hair would be perfectly gelled and combed. Like he was usually wearing a sweater vest and a button-down shirt underneath it, and just looked like A1, very cool and fly. He's probably like cracking up there because I'm like such a geek. But and it just, those kinds of things like weren't as important when you're taking care of like 25 kids and stuff like that in a pediatric nursing home. So right away I kind of thought of like those quality of life things as like I was worried he wouldn't get them. And also just like I loved caring for him. Like any, like a lot of siblings like have this like resentment like towards having to help and stuff like that, but like I loved doing it. Like I loved learning about his G tube, or like anytime he got like a new piece of equipment or anything, like I loved giving him his medications and stuff. Like I don't know, it made me feel like closer to him in a way. And so like by taking that all away, like it almost felt like he was like dying. Like I wasn't gonna have him anymore, even though I could like get in the car and go see him. I don't know, it's just really hard for me.
Well, I'll reiterate what I said earlier, but I think you're just a good person.
Thank you.
To stay on the same topic, in a different podcast, you expressed you wanted a quantity of life for Barry, and your parents wanted quality. Obviously, the parents have the final say since you were like 13, and you had the audacity to say that. So, what would you have done differently?
Well, I think like in the moment, if I had like had the option, like I would have done anything to like probably lengthen his life in the moment until the very, very end. Because I think like throughout his life, a lot of times like I didn't necessarily see him like suffer. Like I said, he was super happy and like barely complained about pain. So a lot of times when like doctors would say like, okay, he's, you know, having this problem or whatever, like I would look at him and he'd be fine. So like it was hard for me to like reconcile that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, let's keep him alive, like those kinds of things. But then at the very end, it was just so horrible. Like it was just so clear how much pain he was in, like for the last 2 weeks especially. So by that point, like it had already, the flip switched for me naturally. Like I didn't want that anymore because I didn't want to see him suffer like that. And now, in retrospect, I never would have, you know, voted for prolonging his life over quality. Now that I like really know what his future was holding.
So, since he has passed away, I feel like that had changed the way you have moved with your career, because now you're able to be more, like you're able to go more outward because you're not, I don't want to say chained down, but you're not connected to him physically anymore, so you're allowed to like reach out and become a doctor. I feel like, let's say he was alive now, I feel like you wouldn't have the same, you would have a much shorter chain. So like, do you feel that him passing away had allowed you to become a bigger advocate and then like become able to like pursue your career path and wanting to be a doctor?
Yeah, honestly, I do feel like that, and I don't like this like feeling. I really only think about it in my head usually because it like is kind of upsetting to me that I feel like this. But I think like he passed away when I was a freshman in college, my spring semester, and I feel like that was like right at like the precipice. Wait, I don't know how to say that word, so take that part out maybe. Sometimes I try to say big words and then I realize I don't know how to say them. Oh, this it's keeping great. Okay. We were like right on the cusp of like my career kind of taking off. So like
Yeah.
a month after he passed away, I got accepted into the honors program at school and got this amazing internship that I literally did not deserve and don't know how I got it to this day. And so I
You're a
feel
good person, Lexi. Let, Can we say it together that you're a good person?
no.
Huh. Okay, well,
But yeah, and I think like that's when it kind of dawned on me. Like in a way, I felt like he was being like, obviously this is not why he died, but like in part, like he was kind of like, okay, like it's time for you to like go and spread your wings because like I only applied to schools in Massachusetts. I was not going to go anywhere where I couldn't get home in the same day, like almost immediately. So yeah, I felt like a little tethered in a way, but not. I never thought of it in a bad way. But
yeah,
then, like, kind of after he passed away, I looked at it in a little bit of a good way, but still feel guilty about it.
yeah. No, you don't want to be a piece of shit, which apparently,
Exactly.
yeah, but I get it. So I know you are a sibling support coordinator for Jordan Guardian Angel Charity. What advice do you have for other siblings that are in similar situation as you were?
Yeah, I would say my advice is to kind of try to, like, be as normal as possible with your sibling. Like, my thing was I always wanted normalcy for Barry. So, like, I wanted to drag him, like, anywhere I was going, like, get him out of his chair, like, make it normal for him, whatever. And I think because of that, it really like preserved like this the true sibling relationship between us because like I feel like if I didn't do that and I only was like having to take on caregiver roles and like I looked at him as more of like a burden, like I wouldn't have been able to like love him as much as I do and also still like look back on this with like so much positivity. Like I am like so grateful that Barry was my brother and that I got that opportunity because it gave me way more positives than it took away or made negatives, whatever. So I think like just look for the ways where you can just play with your sibling and just be with each other and like it's gonna look different from like healthy siblings, but you know, normal is boring. So, you know, try to find your own sense of normal between you guys.
Okay, so before I take a mic away from you, is there anything you want to say? Bill, any words of wisdom, the winning lottery numbers, the mic is all yours.
I wish I had the winning lottery numbers. Grad school's expensive. No, I don't think so. I think like maybe if I could say something to the whole entire world is like just like be kind and stuff. Like you don't need to stare at people who have a disability. Like that used to really just grind my gears when people would do that. And like it's like 2022. Like get the R word out of your mouth.
Okay, there you go. So thank you, Lexi, for giving me your time and expertise. If you want to follow Lexi, her Instagram below her face and in the description below. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching, and I'll catch everyone next time. Bye.
Thank you.